is Robert Marcano. I'm the husband of Julie Kwok. Oops, sorry. Some of you may know me, some of you don't. Many of you know my wife, Julie Kwok, and our very energetic children, Oliver and Amelia. Today, I'll be sharing my baptism testimony and a little bit about myself and how I came to accept Jesus. Julie and I are part of the Japan House Church with our wonderful shepherd and his wife, Stephen and Terry Peck. Before our house church multiplied, we were both part of Silk Road House Church with another wonderful shepherd, Abraham Na. It has been through our house church and over the course of my life that I learned that family and love doesn't have to be restricted to just blood relations. It has been through our house church that I have learned that even during trying times or once-in-a-lifetime moment, as the birth with our daughter, our house church was there to help. Coming together when we needed help or someone to talk to. House church created a sense of belonging and that despite how hard things may get, we are not alone. That no matter how hard we may get knocked down, there will always be a hand to pull you up. As for a little background, I was born and raised in New York, and at a young age, I experienced one of the most challenging events a child could endure. That challenge being an only child from a divorced household. When people hear the word divorce, the first thoughts are broken homes, broken people, broken children. Not too long ago, that was a stigma that cut deep and still does to an extent today. There were no support groups, chat rooms, or social groups. Being a single mother, you were basically on your own unless you had a family to back you up. Unfortunately, that was the case for my mother and myself. Family seemed to have failed us. It was during this time we had been going to church because work friends would tell her, seek your answers there and you may find peace. But for a young family struggling to put food on the table, clothes on their backs, a roof over their head, and trying to keep warm in brutal winters because they can't afford to pay the heating bill, one questions faith and its purpose. Because when it is hard, as a result, feeling abandoned and betrayed by family, it was easy enough to feel abandoned and betrayed by God, which resulted in a path taken that steered away from God and relied upon our sheer will, our tenacity, and self-reliance to overcome every challenge that became before us. And the many years that is how I lived my life. I learned early on in life that it is a continuous lesson, perpetual class in session. As children, we rely upon our parents to be our foundation, our walls, our roof against the harshness of the world. It falls upon us parents to guide, nurture, and prepare our children for the rigors that await them. For a parent to teach their child, sometimes it has to be blatant and on the nose. But for the majority of the time, it's through subtle actions and the giving of wisdom and the hope that your children will one day understand. Jesus always referred to God as his Father. What is a father but a parent? Who are the children? You, me, everyone here and out there. And Jesus, who was the Son of God. A parent is always there to love unconditionally, care for, protect, and most importantly, teach. And just like our earthly parents, our heavenly parent gives us lessons and experiences that challenge our lives and perceptions on life. This happens every day, whether we see it or not. When we seek strength, perseverance, God gives you difficulties, trials, to make you stronger. When we seek wisdom, God gives you problems to solve. When we seek the courage to carry on in life, God gives you dangers to overcome. We can't always hold the hands of our children, but we can let them know we will always be there. Much like how God is always there, and just how Jesus was his only son, we are still God's children. At times, we need a nudge or a kick in the pants to wake up. Awakenings can be sudden, but for the most part are gradual and over the course of time. For my awakening took some time and was gradual with moments of doubt and mistrust. But looking at these three statements that I heard regarding strength, wisdom, and courage, they've rung true. And looking back over the course of my life, I started to understand that we were never truly abandoned. As horrible as those experiences had been, I, including my mother, became stronger, gained wisdom, and built up the courage to face anything that presented a challenge. Which reminded me of a conversation I had once had with a stranger years ago about spirituality. Now, what I'm about to share sounds made up, even fantastical. When I was in my mid-20s, I had just moved from Flushing, Queens to Austin. During this time, I had traveled back and forth to New York to visit family a few times a year. It was during one of these visits I had an interesting conversation with a complete stranger about life and spirituality. During the course of the conversation, the person I was talking to mentioned to me that maybe I should just pick up a Bible and just open it. Doesn't matter where or what page. You might find something that speaks to you. Shortly thereafter, we departed ways, and I had forgotten about the Bible remark. Fast forward a couple of years later, I was dating Julie and enjoying downtown life of Austin. For those familiar with Austin, it's a fun city with all sorts of shops, food, great music scene, just to name a few. One particular shop was an antique shop on South Congress. There you could find all sorts of interesting things. One day, Julie and I decided to go in and check things out. While walking around, I came across a stack of books, which upon a closer look was really a stack of Bibles. At that moment, open the Bible remark popped into my head. I laughed and I said, why not? I mean, what do you got to lose, right? So I grabbed the first one on the top of the stack and I opened the cover. And right there on the first page was a note written clearly and elegantly. Robert, I believe what you're looking for will be helpful. Proverbs 3, verse 5 through 6. I turned to the verse and I read it. And it goes, trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not onto your own understanding. In all your ways submit to him, and he will make your path straight. Needless to say, I froze, and I got a chill. I mean, what are the odds that past conversation will come to fruition? What are the odds that a stack of Bibles will be right there in front of me for me to pick up, look at, and a message directing me to basically turn to that page? It's a verse that basically seared itself into my mind for years to come. And reflecting back to that moment and experiences that followed, I could say that that was the beginning of me taking my path toward Jesus, even though I didn't know this for years to come. You know, many would ask my wife, how do you do it? How can you live and be married to someone that is a non-believer? Do you want to know the answer to such questions? The answer is love. Love transcends everything. Love is limitless. It is a superpower that exists in all of us. Why? Because God is love. Through Jesus, God showed love for humanity, that despite all our flaws, our stupidity, petty differences, our appearances, and how we live our lives, God loves each and every one of us, believers and non-believers. Because just like how we love our children unconditionally, God loves all unconditionally. So remember, when being the fishers of men and women, treat everyone you meet with kindness, love, and respect. Be that ear that listens. Be a sage to give wisdom. Lend a hand, or just be there, even if you feel like you're a lump on the log. Friendship, trust, faith, all build over time. Acceptance is not always immediate. It is gradual through our actions and interactions. Think of it as making as small deposits in the bank, that bank being your faith and the faith of others. Faith is the currency of God's love and Jesus' teachings. Remember, we are humans and creatures of habit. Once we get set in a certain way, that's all we know and do and want to stick with. But once in a while, something comes along to question it, challenge it, and even befuddle you. Well, that is God's way of saying, stop acting like a fool and open your eyes, your heart, and your mind. Don't be afraid or judgmental of those around you, family or not, that don't share the same beliefs. Treat them with kindness, love, and care, just as God treats everything, all of his creations. In the end, I'd like to remind you, everyone, a simple fact. You are someone's miracle, not just your parents, but God's miracle. For we are all children who are always loved and watched over. Thank you for your time, and God bless you all.